guest tonight with me, all from Amsterdam, and that is my very good friend, and I could say mentor also in terms of the experience of how accreditation actually goes. Mr. Timothy Mescon, very fondly we call him as Tim, Prof. Trim,
Right.
and he's
Exactly.
very kind enough to be able to come today to be able to address us on the topic. The topic for today is navigating accreditation during a pandemic. We are going through a very, unprecedented pandemic, wherein there is a great challenge that has been thrown because of this pandemic around. Everything has been disrupted like anything. New things and new aspects has to be adapted. We as human beings have been trying very hard to be able to adapt to this kind of situation. One such situation has been going online, because social distancing, be away from people, is something which is important. Lockdowns, which basically have never been heard before during my lifetimes, that since I am born, today I'm hearing and my children are hearing. This is something which is really unprecedented, no doubt about this fact. We all have been trying very hard to be able to become tech savvy, and therefore technology is playing a very important role in order to be able to run universities. Though far university also had tried its level best with the help of each and every faculty members, who very sportingly and with great motivation adopted the model of real online teaching. We did not indulge into just putting content on the websites and downloading and then giving assignments, but we basically embarked on a journey of trying to really go online by trying to take live classes. Hats off to the entire university administration, and with particular specifically to all my colleagues in all the colleges of the university, all academic. They did a wonderful job in order to be able to do it. Now, the most important thing is this, that once it comes to online teaching, according to me, basically is something which I, I look at in a model which is defined by 3 Ds. One, that online teaching is very demanding. One has to learn, one has to understand things which we have never learned in the last 20 years. Okay, we are trying to learn in just 20 days. And this has been a fantastic journey all across from most of the faculty members, where they are trying to, cope up with the technology. Preparing, video classes, preparing content, which erstwhile was something which we never have actually done before, was there. In nutshell, I can say that during the spring and the summer semesters, all those colleagues who basically were teaching have actually, put in a time which is 4 times the time that they used to put into in-person or in-classroom teaching. So it's very demanding. But on the other hand, the experience at the end of the day is that the other D, that it is doable. It is something that I can actually do, and therefore it's more, easier. If we wish to do it, yes. The initial, resistance was there. The initial bumpy road ahead was there, but all obstacles, were cleared, and we were able to cope up, and we did it successfully. And the third now, which is very important, D for me, is that one has to be, a docent. Docent usually is a person who is in a museum, who goes across and tells you, okay, how you have to look at, give some kind of commentaries. He's one who's like hand-holding, hand-holding across and taking. So I think that the third D in the online teaching is to become a docent for our students, to be able to guide them, to be mentors, to be those who could be able to help, and then, make up and understand and motivate them so that they come online. This is something which is very imperative. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on all my colleagues, today I have one of a very wonderful colleague with me, Mr. Tim Mescon. Tim Mescon is the Executive Vice President and the Chief Officer of the Europe, Middle East, and Africa headquarters of the AACSB International. As you all know, that AACSB is one of the best accreditation agencies in the world. Prof. Timothy is one person who has been leading a team currently to support 460 members in 130 accredited schools throughout the EMEA. You know, Tim Muscon and his team opened the office in 2015, if I could correctly remember, in
That's
Amsterdam,
correct.
yeah, in Netherlands. And since then, there's no looking back at all. One thing that I'd like to tell you about them that, you know, Prof. Tim is a career, you know, academic, an academic par excellence. He has received his PhD from the Terry College at the University of Georgia, MBA from the Cox School at the Southern Methodist University, a BA from Tulane University, and he has served on the faculty of the Arizona State University and the University of Miami. He was the founding dean of the Frank Perdue School of Business at Salisbury University in Maryland. Prof. Tim, I welcome you to this, webinar with all my colleagues around. Already 35 participants, you know, in here,
Super.
all, you know, raring to go and listen to you rather than listen to me. I would like to basically start this entire, presentation by asking you about what is the role that the AACSB accreditation has during the COVID-19? What is that role that you can actually play? Tim.
Well, we'll say it again. Dean, thank you so very much for inviting me, and greetings to all of you this Sunday night. So grateful to each of you for your time and your work during this very challenging global pandemic. We've stayed in contact with the Dean and with your leadership team at Dhofar University, the College of Commerce and Business Administration, and very impressed at how all of you have made that pivot to digital only, and in response to the needs and the demands of your students, how challenging this is, but you've rallied like true champions. And we still obviously have a lot to do and a lot of work, particularly in preparing for the coming months and the coming academic year, and we'll only get better at what we do and how we do it. I want to tell you, if I might, start with a brief story from the continent of Africa, if I might. We have a school that we've had a special relationship with in Northwest Africa, in the country of Liberia, in the capital city there, Monrovia. And an institution, the entire university, about 5,000 students, in a country with very, very limited resources, and where the Liberian technology platform is really quite unsophisticated, quite unpredictable. Well, the president and the dean of the university there reached out to me a month ago, and they are trying desperately to pursue a strategy to come back on online digital delivery to their students in the autumn, in the fall of this year, in September, October of this year. Their challenge is a very limited national technology platform, where many of their students are in villages with no internet at all, and at best, students have linkage to their mobile telephones. And so here in a country like Liberia, where they must get some platform to meet their economic needs as a university, it is very, very challenging. So again, as just an example, you are in Oman, a much more sophisticated country. You've maintained this digital platform. I'm speaking with you on Zoom, which for good or bad will basically will not work in Liberia, and so I reinforce this to colleagues across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, in countries where there is much more sophisticated technology platform. And as complicated as this is for the dean and for you colleagues, I can assure you you are in much better position than with many of our members across EMEA. So congratulations for that, and congratulations to your successfully pivoting over the past 4 months. I know you are on lockdown, and this is complicated, particularly with the holiday Eid upon you, and I get that. But please, as I end all of my messages, be safe, be well, understand that we hope this pandemic will shortly be addressed globally through vaccines and the like. But until then, it is much more important to understand that that this pandemic understands no borders, no limits, and very important that we approach this very, very carefully. So again, Dean Syed, thank you very much for having me. What I would like to share with you and the almost 40 colleagues who have so graciously joined us on this Sunday evening is some of our thoughts and experiences about AACSB and our engagement with our members during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I will tell you, the last trip I took was about 4.5 months ago. I was doing one last seminar at MCI Innsbruck in Austria. We had about 20 colleagues there from across Europe, and my wife was very unhappy with me because this was just the beginning of the pandemic. And Innsbruck itself, this wonderful city in the mountains in Austria, had just had their first COVID-19 breakout. And it turns out it was from a group of Italians who had come across the mountains, come to Innsbruck to ski in March. And there had been an outbreak at this particular hotel in Austria. So we got this 2-day seminar done. I came back to Amsterdam, and that was it. So again, thank you for making the time. I'm going to share with you some of our thoughts about accreditation during this difficult time. It turns out, Syed, I've had quite an experience with digital delivery. I helped co-launch, and for many of your young colleagues, it's hard to believe, one of the first consortia MBA programs delivered exclusively online. When I was still a dean, we launched in my home state of Georgia 20 years ago exactly, among 6 AACSB accredited schools in the state of Georgia. It was called then and is called today the WEB, W-E-B MBA, and it was 6 AACSB accredited schools across the state of Georgia in the United States, and continues today. And now 20 years later, they've educated in that program close to 3,000 students in a digital platform. Obviously, those 6 participating business schools have learned a lot, and the technology universe has changed dramatically over 20 years, but it's been a very interesting experience. So with that, Dean, if you don't mind, let me begin this PowerPoint. I'm going to share this deck, this presentation with your Dean when I am finished, and all of you are welcome. I look forward to see if you have any questions or comments. At the end of this short presentation, I also have a few brief comments, if you don't mind, Dean, on the AACSB new proposed 2020 standards. And I will just share a few slides about that. The vote on those 2020 standards will conclude in just a few days on the 27th of July, but I can give you and your colleagues a little insight on where the vote is today and what this will mean for you and the College of Commerce and Business Administration at Dhofar University as you move forward. And finally, let me say, we are very, very proud of the work that CCBA has done and is doing regarding your AACSB accreditation journey. It is our great hope and anticipation that you, the College of Commerce and Business Administration at Dhofar University, will be AACSB's first accredited school in Oman. Inshallah, we hope and pray with you, but you are making enormous progress and are on track. My colleague, Ehsan Zakri, our accreditation manager in Amsterdam, has been working very closely with you as well. And we are very optimistic that you will become our first AACSB accredited business school in your wonderful country of Oman. So with that in mind, we have just added, I think, our 39th participant to this. Mansoor, I agree with you. If I could virtually clap right now, I would clap as well. I would applaud that.
People can virtually clap.
Exactly, please do. And I will begin this very short presentation and then answer any questions that you might have. So let me share with you first briefly AACSB's presence around the world. As you well know, we have 3 global offices. Our office is in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, to support our members in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. In our office alone, we speak 12, 13 languages and are very proud of our young colleagues, young except for me, in our office. We are continuing our digital platform only, at least until the beginning of 2021. Many of you know we just finished a first ever virtual EMEA and Asia Pacific accreditation conference. It was very successful. We had 250 participants from close to 50 countries across EMEA and Asia Pacific. We will in October also do our annual EMEA only conference and hope some of you will join us. That will be virtual as well. And we're trying to pivot and do all that we can virtually and making great progress with that. Sorry. This is what, as the Dean mentioned, what our global network looks like today. You can see in EMEA, the third row down, we have 486 educational members across the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. We're very proud of that. Now, this is very important to notice. We have 152 of those are accredited, but like you at CCBA at Dhofar University, we have 135 more in the accreditation process. So we're very, very proud of that. And you'll see EMEA is our second largest region besides the Americas, of course, where we started in 1916, 104 years ago. And so you will see globally today, you are one of more than 1,600 1,200 educational members in 102 countries or territories worldwide. So we're very proud of the reach. AACSB is the largest global membership organization of business schools and faculties worldwide, and has the largest accreditation worldwide. And we're very, very proud to have used CCBA at DeFar University as part of this growing global membership. Let me briefly now talk about this quick response that we have tried to engineer at AACSB among our members related to COVID-19. We have a dedicated web page on our that is accessible from our homepage, which is just simply aacsb.edu. From that, there is a dedicated COVID-19 webpage that has been up and running now for the entire 4 months and is updated almost daily in terms of the initiatives and the progress we are making. And just 4 points. Collectively with our membership, we realize we are all in this together. For many institutions, and let me make a comment about the Gulf. Many of you know some of our colleague institutions in Kuwait. Well, Kuwait is an interesting example. Nationally, digital delivery, Dean, was completely forbidden in Kuwait until COVID-19. Now, the ministry there allows digital delivery. Our schools are on lockdown there still. So countries have had a very different perspective of digital delivery. Of course, as I mentioned to you, my experience in the US, when we launched our collaborative, our joint web MBA 20 years ago, even then, we thought we were late with a digital platform. So countries are very, very different. Where I live in Amsterdam, very few schools were offering any programs at all virtually. But in Amsterdam proper, the Amsterdam Business School at UvA at the University of Amsterdam has announced they will continue to offer digital only programs. This is the Amsterdam Business School, at least until February 2021. So they will have no face-to-face at least until February of 2021. That's a little unusual for Europe, which for the most part will be returning to a blended platform this autumn, this fall, in September, October, with a mix of face-to-face and virtual. Likewise, in the Gulf proper, there is a mix of responses of institutions returning to either face-to-face or blended beginning in the autumn, generally speaking in September of 2020. As part of AACSB's quick response, we have tried to provide resources and act both as a virtual platform for our colleagues around the world. One of our learning communities, which is accessible on the AACSB Exchange, and I hope most of you listening have registered for the Exchange. This is our virtual social networking platform. We have a digital delivery learning community on the Exchange, in addition to many others, where you can access much information about how our colleagues regionally and worldwide are responding digitally during this pandemic. So it's a fantastic resource for you. If you need to register for the exchange, we're glad to help you. At the end of the presentation, I will provide you both my direct email and my colleague Asan Zakri's direct email, and we can get you registered for this digital delivery learning community, what we call affinity group in the AECSB exchange as well. We have, as the Dean mentioned, continued to organize global and regional events virtually for you. We're glad to do programs like this, which you are attending on a Sunday night. We're glad to do that. And Syed, please, Dean, you can reach out to me as often as you want. And we are honored to do this and to provide you with whatever other information that you need. And we are now training our volunteers worldwide, believe it or not, to conduct accreditation peer review team visits virtually. So we have never in our 104 years done that, ever. We've done some peer review team visits for schools that are already accredited, but have never done any for initial accreditation visits, but we are planning those in the coming academic year for our member schools. So this is enormously complex. We want to visit all of our schools, but for many countries in the coming year, it is not possible. For some, it will be. And if peer review teams are comfortable visiting or meeting schools in countries where that is allowed, they are going to do that. So we're working both platforms, face-to-face and virtual only, and we'll be doing that during the coming academic year of 2020-2021. So let me talk about a little bit, if I might, about the COVID-19 reporting. What we're expecting our member schools to do, and this is you at CCBA at Dhofar University, in your next report to the initial accreditation committee, we're asking that you give a brief description of the impact that COVID-19 has had on Oman in general, on Salalah in particular, and in detail on Dhofar University. What impact it has had on enrollment, on finances, on you professors and your professional staff, and on your instructional delivery. How have you been forced to change? What impact is this having on your students, on your professors? We know for many of our members worldwide, this has meant, in many cases, putting course or module, but specific course lessons on PowerPoint and providing that to students. And of course, moving forward, you will get much more sophisticated in what you do and how you do it, as we're demonstrating that even with this Zoom platform. We expect you to describe the actions that have been taken by both the university and by the CCBA to address the current challenges related to COVID-19. And do that in the context of what is happening across the nation, across Oman. Explain during this pandemic how you at CCBA are supporting your students, your professors, and your professional staff, and things that you are doing in terms of outreach to your students and to you professors to manage during these most difficult times. And then also, please tell us whether COVID-19, whether this current pandemic has impacted your school's ability to make progress on meeting the accreditation standards. We know for many schools It has made this very, very difficult. We understand that. So we don't want you to hide that. We want you to be transparent and to share with us how this is impacting your progress towards accreditation in meeting our standards. So next, what I want to mention here, Syed, Dean, if you don't mind, is some of the next steps with our standards as we're making the change from where we are with our current standards, which we call the 2013 standards, and the progress that we're making in transitioning to these proposed new standards. So let me briefly talk about those before we open this up for questions. Again, colleagues, most of you know we have 5 real pillars, 5 foundations related to AACSB's collective vision globally for business education. And remembering, please, we are now in 102 countries or territories. So while we like to say we have roots, our essence is our founding in 1916 in the United States, but now the majority of our global members are outside of the United States, and within 3 to 5 years, the majority of our accredited schools will be outside of the United States. So it took 100 years, but we are now truly a global organization. And our 5 pillars that represent our vision are, we say, all of our member schools should be catalysts for innovation, should be drivers of creativity. And particularly during this pandemic, during the COVID-19 virus, we have seen that among our members. And I'm so proud of what you are doing. We should also be co-creators of knowledge. You are at a sophisticated university, at Dhofar University. You have much great research touching many sectors across the university. So not all new innovation or knowledge comes from the CCBA. In many cases, you are working with colleagues in other disciplines. So we recognize that. You should be co-creators of knowledge. You should also be a center for lifelong learning. We realize today that learners or students, they come to you for bachelor's degree, for master's degrees, they go to work, they come back for professional learning and education. We see this as part of the changing universe of higher education. As learners, students will come in, will leave, will come back, and come to you for different kinds of education and training. Some of that will be face-to-face as it's been. Some of that will be exclusively virtual, digital, and some of that in the future will be blended, a little face-to-face, a little virtual. But you should commit to being a lifelong provider for the educational needs of learners. We also believe our members globally will be leaders on leadership. And that means you connect continuously with government and with businesses, large and small, right? And will help define for your community in Salalah and the greater community in Oman and beyond, leadership development and training. And we think that's very important. And finally, the 5th pillar, we believe, is you at the CCBA will need to continue to be enablers of global prosperity. And we know that means different things in different countries. But you through your educational programs, you educate hundreds and thousands over the years, and those learners, those alumni, will help drive economic development in the communities in which they live. And you at the CCBA and Dhofar University will continue to drive global prosperity, both in Salalah and across the country and around the world. And that will be very important. Now, just 2 remaining slides that talk about the impact of these proposed new standards. Our effort has been to develop standards, in the new proposal, as you know, and as the Dean knows and Mansour knows, we will be moving from 15 current standards to 9. It's a big shift because before 2013, we had 21 standards. So we think we're becoming much more efficient. We think these new proposed 9 standards should be more principles-based, less rules-based, and should be relevant to our membership across our 102 countries or territories. Now, in regarding our accredited members, and you're getting closer and closer with the work that you're doing at the CCBA, we have accredited members now in 56 countries or territories worldwide. We hope Oman will be the 57th, inshallah. So we're pulling for you, and we'll do all the work that we need. The new proposed 9 standards have reduced the redundancy. We've made the language clearer and more global. And we've presented these standards in a more orderly manner. Our second, let me mention, I'm sorry. Our second goal was to create standards that are more globally oriented, as I mentioned, and when you look at the language, it's much more global, much less US focused as it should be. And I know you spend a lot of time, and your dean and colleagues are spending a lot of time looking at what we call assurance of learning, the learning goals for your various programs, bachelor's, master's programs. But now we're focused not on goals, but what we call the competencies of your students, what they will finish with as they complete your programs. And we're very excited about that. So my last 2 slides, this is where we are. And this is a big week for us, because as you can see, on the 27th of this week, in 4 days, the vote will be concluded. I can tell you right now, more than 80% of our accredited schools, who are the ones that vote on these new standards, have said they are excited and they approve, they affirm the new standards. So we will have the final vote in 4 days, but the way it is now, the new standards will be approved in 4 more days. So we're very excited about that. The transition plan looks like this. For the coming year, if schools that will be prepared to have their peer review team visit either in 2020 or 2021, it is optional. They can go up under the 2013 standards or the 2020 standards. Beginning in 2021-22, it is optional. You pick. It is optional the following year, but then by the academic year 2023-24, it is mandatory. So you will work with Hassan, Dean, and you will make the decision. Are we reviewed under the current 15 standards, or will we migrate to the 2020 standards? And that will be entirely up to you. The last point I will say is thank you. And this is the end of my formal presentation. What I am sharing with you on this slide is promised, and I will send this PowerPoint deck to the dean as soon as I am off the call. But here is Ehsan's email, and here is mine. You are more than welcome to reach out to Ehsan in English or Arabic, and he will be glad to reply to you. And with me, I would appreciate your emails in English if you don't mind, and I will do my best to reply as well. So Dean, let me stop there. And let me say again, I am ready for any questions that either you or any of your close to 40 colleagues might have. And thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, Tim. That was really very insightful in terms of what the accreditation is actually demanding from us. And naturally, I can understand that, this COVID-19 situation has thrown everything to disarray, and we need to re-evolve and rethink, how we have to work. I just remember, Prof. Tim, one of the saying from a great professor, Professor Peter Drucker. It is very much relevant as of today. What Peter Drucker said a long time ago, that the greatest danger in the time of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic. So we need to actually evolve ourselves in terms of,
Right.
the new, normal.
Right.
So the online system has to work. Before I go ahead, I'd like to ask you a few, questions, and then
Sure.
questions from, all other colleagues which are there. Coming to this pandemic situation, Prof. Tim, we are trying to give out, the learning through online system. The usual AOL process, where the course learning outcomes are very much mapped to the program learning outcomes. We have full, matrix and, and rubrics, which basically used to work for us. But suddenly, given the fact that this online system has come, many of the colleagues were not able to, come up, and we wanted to adapt those systems. So there is a you could say a stick in the wheel of the
Right.
AOL, and the AOL system has not been working. What's your advice? What should be done in terms of getting the AOL on track and see that we achieve the AOL? Because now the government of Oman has decided that we're going to go for online learning also in the fall semester,
Great.
and blended learning basically would be in the ratio of 80 to 20. So
Right.
there'll be 20%, in person or in class teaching, but the rest of 80% still will continue online. So what's your advice?
What a fantastic question. And remembering too, Dean, that it may be a third to a half of our global membership may be exclusively online only in the fall. So let me give you a couple of ideas. First, let me remind everybody again that I mentioned the AACSB exchange. Please, colleagues, make sure you are registered. What that means is every day, and remember, this is like the social media platform, but just for AACSB members. So on that platform, there are many discussions of questions exactly like the one the dean has just asked. How do we change our assurance of learning processes, our objectives, our learning goals, our rubrics, if we're moving this in the past 4 months you have, and in the autumn it will be overwhelmingly virtual. How do we do that? This is a huge topic for discussion on our AACSB exchange. Schools are sharing with each other on the exchange examples of how they have moved their learning goals into a virtual context. They will share those examples with you. They will share rubrics with you. One of the learning communities on the exchange is the quality assurance learning community, which is accreditation managers at our member schools around the world. So please take advantage of it. Also, we have a special learning community for our members, and there are close to 120 in the Middle East and Africa. And there's a lot of discussion about this on the platform as well. You remember the question that I showed you earlier, excuse me for doing this. Describe whether COVID-19 has impacted the school's ability to align with the accreditation standards. This is exactly what Dean Sayed talked about. And then you want to say, and we know that, and these are the short run changes that we are making in our data collection around assurance of learning to make sure that we are measuring still learning goals. We might be looking at different goals and different rubrics during this complicated time. And we certainly understand that you have to make some changes as you move either to all digital or to mostly digital. So we most certainly understand that and take advantage, as I said, of that fantastic dialogue globally among our members to see, well, what are other schools doing in modifying their assurance of learning standards? So a fantastic question, Dean. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. Another question which basically is crossing my mind as a dean is about the sustainability issues.
Yeah.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, the university is going through a big turbulence, particularly on the financial front.
Yeah.
And being on that turbulence on, with the finances, there has been a lot of, problems with respect to hiring of faculty and
Right.
faculty deployment.
Right.
Given this turbulent time, usually we used to hire faculty during the period of March to June,
Right.
and those faculties are given the appointments and they join us on 1st of September, which this seems to be in a very big disarray.
Yes.
We are not very sure whether the faculty whom we have hired across colleges in the whole university, including CCBA, whether they could be able to join us on 1st of September, and maybe they might just look for a deferment given the travel situation all across the world. Now, having said that, Prof. Tim, we might be forced to basically take some other measures.
Yes.
Where the teaching load might go up, or the size, we have to make a compromise.
That's right.
Given this kind of a situation, which in the normal situation would have not happened. What's your advice? How can we be able to cope up with this kind of a problem that we are facing as of now?
Well, what the dean is asking is really the heart of our flexibility in addressing this terrible global pandemic. It is what we call the perfect storm that many of our member schools are facing. This huge global pandemic, the move that you have made from face to face to virtual over the last 4 months, and the impact this is going to have on the economics, on the financial stability of universities and business schools worldwide. So the first thing that I would recommend, and it was in those same guidance that I provided on the previous slide, is to explain the national situation in Oman, and then specifically how this is impacting Dhofar University. The issue of much recruiting of professors coming to a complete standstill during the pandemic is absolutely understandable. It is likely understandable that the load, the teaching load that the dean mentioned at many of our institutions in the Middle East and worldwide is going to change until the pandemic has ended. Many of our institutions have already been forced to eliminate existing teaching positions. And that is quite possible. I will share with you, Dean, that AACSB proper, we're 104 years old, and for the first time in 104 years, we have eliminated 10% of our staff. So very difficult. But again, we all have to respond to pandemics and to the economic challenges that this creates in an appropriate way. So we know you are going to make some dramatic changes. Please, colleagues, and I say this to the professors, this is my 41st year since I began as an assistant professor in 1979. So I have seen major changes take place at different periods over these 4 decades. Now during the pandemic, but I remember only 12 years ago, the economic crash that the world created. And then 10 years before that, what we called Y2K, and universities preparing for the transition from the 20th century to the 21st century, and the challenges that created. And then the challenges in the early 1980s, before many of you were born, which was high inflation worldwide. So these are recurring challenges that institutions face. All I can say is they will be difficult, but you at Dhofar University in the college, at the CCBA, you are not alone. So tell your story, Dean. Go into a description of it. We know it will pass, but we know it will be difficult. But you are much better sharing it and explaining your story than in not explaining it.
Thank you very much for that. One more question. I'll not ask you, as a person from AACSB, but I'll now like you to put the cap of an academic. So now give us advice on those aspect. And one of those features that we, as most of the colleagues in the Dhofar University are facing, is about the stress, is about the anxiety. It's about the fact that we are not able to, what I call as recharging our batteries. We used to go for, for a holiday, for a vacation, back home to various places. Okay, these 2 months of July and August was basically, our annual holidays time. We have been forced to, quickly cope up with the online, teaching. We are under severe situation in terms of lockdowns, working almost now for more than 12 hours. Some of them are working for as far as 18 hours. And I don't know, like some of the colleagues might be facing the same problem as I'm facing, and that is I'm having an increase in my weight because I'm eating too much than what is actually required in terms of doing exercises. So given this fact, how as an academic you would like to advise to the colleagues how to manage that stress, that anxiety, which is basically there with all of them, that gloominess which somehow has crept, though we have kept our smile on our face, but still that kind of gloominess is still there.
So I'm very proud and impressed that you answer this question, that you asked this question, because I think it is the single greatest challenge facing our members worldwide is this issue of stress, of worry, of concern, and how do you yourself and those of you with families, how do you deal with this pandemic? It is very important, first and foremost, and Dean, I'm glad you asked this, that each of you take care of yourselves and your family, that you do not sit at your computer excessive amount of time per day, that you practice what we call mindfulness, that you think about things that bring you peace, bring you tranquility, and help you connect with things outside of work. You must take care of yourselves if you are to hope to take care of your students moving forward. You must have downtime. You must have time when you can do other things. And in many cases, this may be reading, this may be music, this may be other outlets that allow you, that what we say, to clear our minds, and to focus on more serene, more serenity, more things that really allow you to move out of your academic role at the CCBA and at Dhofar University for focused periods of time. I will tell each of you that is very, very important. We know the stress, we know the pressure on you with restricted mobility is very challenging. And you've got to create your own peacefulness, if you will, your own kinds of escapes that allow you to move out of the world of work for periods of time. I am sure the dean and the university respect that, and I'm begging you, please take care. And I mean, in a much broader sense, please take care of yourselves and your families, or there are much greater challenges with which you will have to deal. So I beg each of you to do that to the best of your ability. Dean, I'm grateful for that question.
Thank you, Prof. Tim. Thank you very much for your time. I know that you are pressed for time. You have other issues to deal with. Uh, the presentation and the talk that you delivered today, I think is very, 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 very inspirational. We have come to know about how the accreditation process is going to be. We at CCBA and Dhofar University are fully committed to be able to see and ensure that we do get this AACSB, and we will be the first university in Oman to get accredited. And I'm sure that all my colleagues are, very much, with us. They are, wholeheartedly supporting this whole accreditation process. And as per your advice, we will take it very seriously. We will keep ourselves, as much motivated as possible. So all my colleagues who are listening to me, comes, 29th of July is the last date once you have the examination, the last exam. So please get over with your evaluation by 30th, and then have a good break for the next 30 days.
Right.
Be away from university, be away from your computers, have a good time during Kharif, and that will be a very, very nice way to be able to cool down yourself, because come 1st September, we are back again in the grind. So once again, we will be in the process, once again on that count. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. And
it was
please,
really fantastic to hear from you. I know that you're pressed for time on that count.
Thank you.
You have been able to manage, from your busy schedule to come over and,
But Dean, let me say, inshallah, we will all be together in the future. And again, I want to reinforce to everyone, please enjoy the Kharif, enjoy your spring. It is very important, and you have one of the most beautiful seasons to do that in the world. So
Yeah,
please take
definitely.
advantage of that.
Definitely.
Dean,
Definitely.
thank you again. I will send you this deck. I wish my best to all my colleagues, and hopefully I will see you sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to AACSB. Thank you to Mansoor for doing the great work. Thank you to Dr. Mavilani, my assistant dean, and thank you for all the faculty members, Dr. Luna, Dr. Paul, Dr. Samin Ahmed Khan, Dr. Mukesh from the other colleges who have joined. Some of the names I might have missed, but thank you very much, all the colleagues from CCBA to be with us. Bye-bye and have a very good evening. Thank you very much, everybody. See you. Bye.